This is absolutely a must-see heartwarming film for everyone. Some say it lets the whole world see into the hearts of people with autism. Others say it teaches us that family love is never the result of cold calculation, but something we should have understood all along. The waitress accidentally spilled a box of toothpicks, but the man beside her just glanced once and spoke out the exact number.
82, 82, 82. 246 total.
Charlie thought his brother was making it up, but when he asked the waitress how many toothpicks were in the box,
250.
Charlie thought it wasn't bad at all. He was only off by 4, but Raymond insisted firmly that it was exactly 246. Yet just as they were about to leave, the waitress said,
There's 4 left in the box.
Charlie froze completely, never expecting that his brother with autism would have a memory that never forgets. At that moment, Charlie thought of a quick way to make money. He had his brother stare at a deck of cards for a few seconds, then suddenly pulled a few out. Without even blinking, Raymond read off every single removed card with total accuracy. Charlie's excitement boiled over as he slammed on the gas and drove straight to the biggest casino in Las Vegas. On the way, he kept thinking he needed to dress the part, but he barely had any cash, so he pawned off his only valuable watch and took Raymond to a clothing store. He hoped to disguise their poverty through their appearance. As the saying goes, clothes make the man, and after a careful transformation, the two instantly looked like real millionaires. They soon chose a busy table, and thanks to Raymond's photographic memory, it didn't take long before they were raking in piles of winnings. Even nearby guests gathered around to watch, their eyes full of envy. But just as they were lost in the thrill of success, their unusual play caught the suspicion of the casino manager. The manager immediately ordered security to monitor the cameras, but after an entire afternoon of surveillance, they couldn't spot a single flaw. What no one expected was that their almost supernatural luck came from Raymond's remarkable memory, despite his disability. However, Charlie's real motive for taking his brother out was to trick him out of his entire inheritance. It turned out that before their father passed, he left $5 million entirely to Raymond, while Charlie only got the old car his father had driven for a lifetime. In Charlie's memory, his father had always been cold and unfeeling toward him. He vividly remembered the day he turned 18, when he secretly took the family car for a drive, full of longing for freedom. But his father actually called the police, which left him locked in a cell for 3 whole days. From that moment, Charlie felt family love was a cruel joke, and the bond between father and son was broken. Even now, when he spoke of it to his girlfriend Susanna, Charlie's voice carried bitter resentment. He hated his father's harshness and blamed him for never giving a shred of warmth, which was why he had never gone back home in all these years. At his father's funeral, Charlie stood off to the side like an outsider, his face showing no grief, his mind focused only on the $5 million. But when the lawyer read the will, he learned he had an older brother he had never met, and every penny was left to him. Charlie couldn't believe it, thinking his father had been hiding a secret child. Burning with anger and confusion, he dug around until he finally found his brother's address. To his shock, his brother had lived in a mental institution for over 20 years. Dr. Brunner spoke of this special patient with pity, but Charlie felt nothing. 2 decades of non-existent brotherly love left him with only aversion. Why should this brother who suddenly appeared take everything that should have been his?
Does he know how much money he's been left?
No, he doesn't understand the concept of money.
He's just inherited $3 million. He doesn't understand the concept of money? That's fucking poetic, don't you think?
He poured his frustration onto Dr. Brunner, but realizing his brother had limited intellect, Charlie thought reclaiming the inheritance would be easy. To lure his brother into signing papers, he lied and said he would take him to a baseball game. This sport, a symbol of family and childhood joy in American culture, struck directly at Raymond's deep longing for family closeness. Without a moment's doubt, Raymond chose to believe him. Charlie successfully led his brother out of the institution, already planning to head to Los Angeles for the legal process. But just when he thought everything was under control, he never imagined that a difficult trial was about to begin. On the road, Raymond, who had never left the institution, gazed out the car window with endless curiosity. What seemed ordinary to others was, for him, a long-lost real world. But when Charlie took him to the airport to board a plane, Raymond stared at the runway and began reciting decades of air disasters, complete with dates and casualties, his voice trembling with fear. Having lived apart from society for so long, Raymond pieced together the world from fragments of information, and danger in his mind was magnified beyond measure. Charlie tried to calm him, repeating that flying was safe, but Raymond flatly refused to board. As the plane prepared for takeoff, Charlie grew desperate and tried to drag his brother aboard, but the moment he touched Raymond's arm, his brother screamed. With no choice, Charlie had to swallow his frustration and decide to drive to Los Angeles. Yet not long after they got on the highway, a serious car accident unfolded right before them. Raymond's face turned pale with fright, and his eyes were filled with terror. Just as Charlie stopped the car to wait for traffic, Raymond suddenly pushed the door open and ran off, muttering a long list of highway accidents. He kept reciting as he darted through the cars in panic, like a trapped animal that had lost its way. Seeing this, Charlie rushed after him, pleading again and again for his brother to get back into the car. But their actions clearly disrupted the traffic, and a highway officer quickly came over and signaled them to stop. Charlie, afraid his brother would cause more trouble, had no choice but to promise they would not take the highway again. Yet Raymond still refused to get in. So helplessly, Charlie drove slowly, inching forward with the car right behind his brother. One man and one car crept along like this until midnight, when they finally made it off the highway. All the way, his brother's endless muttering circled around like a buzzing fly, driving Charlie into irritation. To quiet him down, Charlie bought a small television. Though it gave Charlie a moment of peace, it maxed out his credit card. That night, they had to squeeze into a shabby roadside motel. As he looked out at the drizzling rain, Charlie felt a wave of frustration. He had thought he could easily claim the inheritance, yet trouble kept piling up. At dinner time, Raymond, who had missed his strict eating schedule, began chanting stubbornly again.
Orange soda, orange soda. Pause, 12:31.
Knowing his brother's temper and not wanting another scene, Charlie had to run out into the rain to buy fried fish sticks. But when Raymond saw the plate, he noticed there were only 4 instead of the usual 8, and he simply refused to eat. Charlie looked at his brother's blank expression and only wished they could reach Los Angeles sooner. The road from Central California to Los Angeles was already full of twists and turns, and with his brother's antics, Charlie felt like he was being driven insane. The next morning, as they continued the trip, Raymond suddenly threw a tantrum, refusing to wear anything but boxer shorts. He even insisted Charlie drive 100 kilometers out of the way to a small shop that sold only vintage cotton underwear. These traditional stores were rare in American communities dominated by fast fashion brands. The constant arguing made Charlie unable to focus on driving until he finally exploded in anger.
Shut up!
At his breaking point, Charlie took his brother to a counseling center. He thought he might finally get some answers, but during the tests, the doctor discovered Raymond's astonishing calculating ability. The doctor fired one math problem after another, and to everyone's surprise, Raymond not only answered each one correctly, but even faster than a calculator.
He's a genius, right?
Charlie was stunned by the sight, but when the doctor changed the subject and asked how much a lollipop cost, Raymond blurted out $1 million without hesitation. Clearly, years of isolation had left him without the slightest grasp of daily economics. Facing this mix of brilliance and absurdity, Charlie was at a loss for how to describe his brother's intelligence. But he felt little emotion toward it. All he wanted was to finish the inheritance transfer and be rid of the burden. What he didn't realize was that this journey, which began over money, had already shifted its course. And in their time together, a quiet bond of family redemption was forming. That night, as Raymond brushed his teeth in the bathroom, he suddenly hummed a familiar tune, the same melody Charlie had often heard as a child. The song was like a small hook pulling on Charlie's memory. As a boy, Charlie had few friends, often sitting alone in the yard, secretly imagining a companion he called the Rain Man. The Rain Man would chase butterflies with him, and when he was bullied, the Rain Man would soothe him with that very song. But as he grew up, the Rain Man never appeared again, leaving an unspoken regret in Charlie's heart. Thinking of these fragments, Charlie felt his nose sting with emotion. He turned the shower knob, wanting the hot water to wash away his frustration, but when Raymond saw the steam, he suddenly panicked. He rushed forward in a frenzy, trying to shut the water off.
Let's get it, man.
I want grandbaby. Water. Water. I want.
As Charlie repeatedly said he wasn't burned, a long-buried memory suddenly became clear. When he was young, their father had believed his brother had hurt him, and to protect him, had sent Raymond away to the institution. Back then, many families still chose isolation to avoid the challenge of caring for relatives with disabilities rather than seeking community support. Charlie finally realized that the Rain Man he had remembered all these years was never imaginary. It had been his brother all along. All those years, his brother had been protecting him in his own clumsy way. Only in this moment did Charlie awaken. His father had never been cold or heartless. His love had simply been hidden too deep. Back then, when his father called the police on him, it wasn't out of cruelty, but out of fear that he might have an accident while driving. His father used this harsh method to keep him safe. The truth weighed heavily on Charlie's heart, and he knew he could never hurt his brother again. But the crushing debt in his mind tore at him relentlessly. On one side was blood-bound family, on the other was financial ruin, leaving Charlie caught in an impossible choice. Trying to make up for years of neglect, Charlie sought every way to fill the gaps in his brother's life. By day, he patiently taught Raymond to dance, letting him feel the lightness of rhythm. By night, he took him to a calm bar, letting him share in the simple joy of being a man. In quieter times, Charlie drove with his brother along Route 66. This mother road once carried the history of westward expansion, and today it still drew travelers with its open plains and sunsets. Together, the brothers sat in the glow of the fading sun, and for the first time, Charlie felt true peace. No burden of loans, no shadows of guilt, only the calm on his brother's face and the sweet scent of grass carried by the evening breeze. Charlie looked at his brother's face bathed in the golden glow of sunset, wishing this road could go on forever. So Charlie made a reckless decision, arranging a meeting with Dr. Brunner to fight for Raymond's guardianship. That desperate determination made him resemble those people in society who, in order to make up for past regrets, are willing to break free from their set paths, carrying a clumsy yet stubborn kind of courage. But Dr. Brunner believed Charlie had no real intention of caring for his brother and was only after Raymond's inheritance, so he rejected his request outright. He coldly declared that Raymond's inheritance would remain under his management and Charlie should not expect to see a single cent. Dr. Brunner even insisted that the only way Raymond could receive proper care was to stay in the institution. Then Dr. Brunner pulled out a check for $300,000, hoping Charlie would give up guardianship. But Charlie refused without hesitation. He knew deep down that for years he had lived far too focused on profit, believing only money could fill the emptiness inside. Yet through his time with his brother, he slowly realized that family was the true comfort that warmed the heart. He decided to keep fighting for guardianship, not for inheritance anymore, but from a genuine desire to take care of his brother and preserve their rare bond. The hearing began as scheduled, and by procedure, a court-appointed psychiatrist first had to evaluate Charlie's ability to care for Raymond. The doctor started by asking Raymond what Charlie had done with him during their time together. Without much thought, Raymond recounted everything in detail, mentioning how Charlie had taken him to win money at a casino, to drink at a bar, and even taught him how to pursue women. The more Raymond spoke, the more panicked Charlie felt inside. He knew these words, in the ears of the doctor, only made his case for guardianship weaker. He tried to explain, but the doctor didn't give him a chance to interrupt, having already drawn a conclusion. How could a man who showed no grief at his father's funeral suddenly develop real affection for a brother he had never known? Especially when Charlie's initial motive for taking Raymond was already suspicious and lacking any professional care experience. The doctor remained convinced Charlie could not possibly provide proper care. But in the end, the decision rested on Raymond's own choice. The doctor turned to him and asked if he wanted to live with Charlie. Without hesitation, Raymond nodded in agreement. Just as a flicker of hope rose in Charlie's heart, thinking things might turn around, the doctor then asked if he was willing to return to the mental institution with Dr. Brunner. To Charlie's shock, Raymond answered yes again. At that moment, Charlie realized that in his brother's simple world, both he and Dr. Brunner were family figures he trusted, and he could not distinguish which he wanted more. The doctor then called Dr. Brunner outside for a private talk. Charlie sat there, filled with dread that he would lose guardianship completely. Grasping his last chance, he trembled as he voiced the feelings he had buried for so long.
I don't know if I'm gonna have a chance to talk to you again, but I just want you to know that what I said about being on the road with you, I meant. I like having you for my brother.
I'm an excellent driver.
But before his words could settle, Raymond leaned his head gently against Charlie. For someone with autism who feared close contact, such a gesture was beyond anything Charlie had imagined. That gentle lean shattered the stereotype that people with autism lack emotions and pierced through the common filter of profit-first thinking in society, giving pure affection a tangible form. When his brother lifted his head, Charlie clearly saw tears brimming in his eyes filled with trust. In that moment, Charlie fully understood the weight of brotherhood. Unmeasured by profit, untouched by worldly calculation, it was one of the most precious, yet most overlooked roots of human connection. As expected, the court ruled against Charlie. Even though he had braced for it, he couldn't stop a wave of disappointment from rising. He knew it meant his brother would soon return to the institution. The time for parting came quickly, and Charlie had prepared a bag full of snacks for his brother. As he handed them over, he forced a smile and promised he would visit every 2 weeks. Charlie expected only a quiet nod in return, but Raymond instantly calculated the exact dates they would meet.
14 days from today. Today's Wednesday.
Hours?
336 hours.
Mystifying.
But 1,209,600 seconds.
Charlie stared silently at him, realizing that though his brother could not express feelings in plain words, the anticipation of reunion and his attachment were hidden in that string of precise numbers. Watching his brother clutch the bag tightly, Charlie suddenly understood that even if he lost the guardianship case, this bond, shaped by family, but tested by the world, had already become their strongest support, unshaken by distance. This is a film that brings tears to the eyes, revealing both the fragile tenderness and the unyielding strength of humanity. Charlie's shift from calculation to sincerity is also a mirror of our own reconciliation with ourselves. We chase wealth and achievement, yet too often forget that the purest emotional connections are life's greatest treasures. Through his awkward yet genuine ways, Raymond teaches us that love needs no grand words, only a heart willing to come close. His numbers, his stubbornness, his gentle leaning, each one is a silent yet resounding declaration. This film is like a mirror, reflecting the family bonds and regrets we once overlooked, while lighting the path back to our true selves. It tells us that no matter how noisy the world becomes, love remains our ultimate redemption and our final home. May we all have the courage to pursue it and the sincerity to embrace it. Autism, also called autism spectrum disorder, is a neurodevelopmental condition that begins in early childhood. Its core features include difficulties with social communication, narrow interests, and repetitive behaviors, such as struggling to understand emotions or clinging to strict routines. It is not the same as being reclusive or lacking intelligence, and some individuals may have special talents in areas such as memory or calculation. Causes involve both genetic and environmental factors, and early detection with interventions such as behavioral training and language therapy can greatly improve quality of life. Understanding and acceptance from society are equally important for them.